But yeah, then he obviously ends his tweet with the famous line from Satoshi himself: "You don't believe me or don't get it. I don't have time to try and convince you. Sorry." So it's pretty bullish, I think, to see someone like Edward Snowden pretty much going, "This is the most significant monetary advance since the creation of coinage." You know, he's pretty much going, "This is the next evolution of money." You know, before he's pretty much taking us back to a time. He's going back to the history of money, and it's the bartering system, and everything's quite convoluted, and there's lots of friction. You've got the classic problem of the coincidence of wants, where just because I have a load of oranges, but you have some chickens, I want some chickens, but you don't want my oranges. What I need to trade my oranges for something that you want, and you need that coincidence of wants to all line up for bartering to work. So we essentially created coins, which just was represented form of value. And then suddenly now everyone valued a coin the same. So I could now convert my oranges into coins and then buy the chickens and the bread and the wood, you know, that I needed. Edward here is basically going, that was groundbreaking for civilization, and just completely, it was the catalyst to exploding the productivity of humankind on the planet once we invented coins, and we didn't suddenly have to work in silos and all that kind of stuff and small little bartering teams. We could scale our productivity. Bitcoin is the next evolution above coinage. This is now magic internet money that is also sound, scarce, and far better than the fiat system that we are in, and will lead to such crazy productivity and human advancement. And I think he's spot on. That's exactly why I'm here. This is the bullish case for Bitcoin.
Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. Pod 132. This is right. The bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit pod 132, live and direct, brought to you by Mr. All In, aka the Trillion Dollar Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, So Never Look, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, no surprise, she's not around. Mrs. No Show, nowhere to be seen, aka No Show. What's going on?
Well, I was just admiring my lovely poster, which you can't really see. So the new addition to the wall. You can't make out what on earth's showing on that one, but it's I think I showed it a couple of weeks ago. It's a Bitcoin white paper, tastefully in orange and black.
Nice.
Lovely, lovely addition to our wall. The wife said, "You got another Bitcoin poster?" I was like, "Yes." It's been sitting on the floor for the last few weeks, and I finally put it up.
Oh
But a
yeah,
nice little reminder to her.
just feel like it's a virus that's going to keep spreading. You know, there's two, then there'd be four, then there'd be
Yeah.
eight, then there'd be 16. Before you know it, picture of the kids are going to get taken out, replaced with I was like, why
Well,
is there a picture of
or
some guy's calves in where like our wedding picture was? It's like, they're Hal Finney's calves, mate. Do you respect the calves on the Hal
or
Finney?
or I get all the photos and I send it to that artist, or a similar one, to put in
Mm.
signs of Bitcoin. So you know that one who did the Renaissance style paintings with Bitcoin in them. Like that kind of just take all the family photos, all the wedding pictures and so on, and put bits of Bitcoin in there. So like
Yeah.
maybe it's like, the wedding car, show me and my wife, and then behind it through the window, there's Hal Finney's cars running past.
Love it. Yeah. Talking of low time preference as well, I managed to fix my light from last
Oh,
week.
you do that yourself?
I did it myself. I
Fair
didn't,
play.
yeah, and I did four others around my house as well. So Thank you, Mr. Electrician, that denied me from taking, well, from actually paying him to do it. He said, no, have a go yourself. Obviously, if you electrocute yourself, yeah, then that's going to be a shame. But yeah, I did it. So
So
160 quid saved.
that's nice. You could buy yourself a few disc plates with that.
Exactly.
How many have you got so far?
What, disc plates?
Yeah.
Oof, a lot. There's a lot around the house.
How many Bitcoin ones?
One, two, yeah, two Bitcoin ones.
What about yourself, Mr. All In?
Oh my God. I got like six in this room and they're all Bitcoin. And then there's another three or four upstairs and they're all Bitcoin. So 10 and they're all Bitcoin.
I suppose yours is a Bitcoin farm though, so Mrs. All In can't really deny that.
Even in the nursery, there's three in the nursery and they're Bitcoin. They're just they're just the ones you normally scroll past. It's like, oh no, they're too kiddie. You're like, oh no, but I have kids now. Click, click, click.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
can
the
buy
is
kiddie
it
Bitcoin
is it
art.
the monkey in space
Yeah.
saying be mine? Yeah, I saw that and went, I quite like it, but I can't bring myself to buy
Yeah,
that.
then there's one of a spaceman dabbing and it's like to the moon and with
Yeah.
Bitcoin on the moon. You're like
So
way
so
too
most
cringe for
people
my
have
office.
like zoo stickers or rocket stickers in a nursery. The children, Mr. All In, have Bitcoin posters to look at.
Hell yeah. Orange pulling them from and literally they recognize Bitcoin. It's funny. Like as they grow up and like they'll see a Bitcoin logo somewhere random. They're like, oh, Bitcoin. You're like, I can
Oh,
guarantee no other kid in their class would recognize that.
to be fair, like my son was trying to read the Bitcoin white paper the other day.
No, nice.
I was listening to him, I was making me laugh because obviously he's going to get it through almost subliminal messaging to
Yeah,
him, while my daughter as well. The fact that it's a normality around the house.
I mean,
exactly.
it's a normality for mine that every Tuesday, Daddy records and I talk about Bitcoin. To
I don't think
them,
my
I
kids
think,
have a clue yet.
oh, no. Yeah, like they know. Them boys know, like for sure. But the challenge is it's a classic, oh, he's so into it. I don't want to know about it. They're not really like embracing it. It's more, oh, that's his thing.
Do you know
And it'll
what?
be one of those where when they're older, they're like,
Maybe I'll start getting some shibbing. Be like, Daddy, why don't you like shib?
The way I've addressed that actually, like with the 5-year-old, for example, like they are too young to really understand money. Sometimes they'll come up to me and be like, it's $300, for a hot dog. It's just they don't know what the freaking like the value of money, right? So instead of like trying to talk about Bitcoin, instead I just talk about the principles. We were literally talking about this before about the high and low time preference. So
mm,
one of the things I just introduced is when the 5-year-old wants an item, I create a chart and the value of that item is on the chart. And then she does a number of jobs that we give a value. And as she completes them, she essentially earns the item and then she gets it. So, and it was great the other day. She came running up to me and she was like, oh, Mr. All In, Mr. All In. I think I say my name then, but like, um, I really want some roller skates. I was like, okay, okay. Her birthday and Christmas is just gone. I'm like, a bit inconvenient. Could have said that a month ago. But she's like, can I have a chart? Can I have a roller skates chart? I'm like, yes, you can. You absolutely can. And then so we drew up her chart. I basically just went, probably about £50 from the roller skates, whatever. And she was like, what jobs can I do? What jobs can I do? I was like, well, your toys are all a bit messy at the moment. Put those away, you get 2 quid. She's like, woof, all done. She's like, can we draw on the £2? Draw on the £2. So you can't talk about Bitcoin, but you talk about the principles of Bitcoin, right? It's you don't get things like the high time preference, low time preference. She already knows at 5 that roller skates don't just appear out of nowhere. They
Nice.
need to be earned. And she's 5 and she just does day-to-day jobs. She's on about 15 quid now. She's like 2 weeks in. And so she'll probably get it in another 2 weeks. She'll get to the thing. So she's had to wait a month. So not only does that make sure, because I always like to validate these things with 5-year-olds anyway, they flip from fucking one thing to another. So it's like in a month's time, really, does she still want the roller skates is what I'm thinking, because she might have gone off it. But number two, she has earned those things. She knows that she can't just demand them. She needs to earn it. And even that is a good principle to go off into life with. And if she has those types of principles in her, she'll naturally find Bitcoin anyway. It's because it's not the fiat lifestyle, is it? Fiat is either buy it today with the money you have, or if you don't have the money, loan it, get into debt to get the item. A Bitcoiner saves, earns the money, gets the item when he can afford it.
Or just buy it with no kind of like, I suppose, people will buy things for their kids just because they've asked rather than actually making them earn it. So it's like there's that swing to it as well. I think I'm just imagining like if I started talking to my kids about Bitcoin, like my daughter be like, they'd be like, my daddy likes drinking on a Tuesday. My daddy likes playing football. My daddy talks to his friends about some magical internet money. He talks about hodling. He says the government is scum. And he keeps on telling my mummy to have fun staying poor.
Yeah, you have to be a
Only
little
where
bit
you were
careful.
going with that because I thought, right, 5 minutes in, we're definitely going to get cancelled.
I don't think we've even sworn so far.
No.
Well, I suppose you say it when you're introducing it, don't you? So there probably is a bit of swearing, but not up to the usual standard.
No,
Do,
we're being good. Talking about family.
yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose on that, a moment of reflection is the title. How fitting when we're talking about family.
Yeah.
So it's Mr. All In promoting his own tweets, or X's. Are they called tweets still? I never quite
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So does anyone remember this day? So Bitcoin was 3821, so £3,821. Ethereum is £87.98. Wow.
But it's the
Um,
percentages down, right? It's down
yeah,
39%. And that isn't a 24-hour period.
Mm.
That
I
isn't
suppose
the
that's bringing some context to it because I looked at it and went, okay, this is March 2020,
yeah.
but I didn't realize it was within a day. So it
Yeah.
dropped from,
Yeah.
quick maths of what, seven-ish?
It's about 6.5 grand. So this is like you go to bed March 11th, 2020. Right, Bitcoin is 6.5 grand, and you're going, this is bad anyway. Right. We used to be at an all-time high of 20K. So we're already, what's that, about 75% down
Yeah.
ish, probably only about 70% down. And you just go, this is probably near the bottom, right? You wake up March 12th, Bitcoin's gone down a further 39 fucking percent in a whilst you slept.
Don't think we've had a day like that in the last cycle, have we?
Not
No,
recently, no.
we have not. We have not. So
Have
you
we
just
had
go,
have
oh,
we had
six and
double
a half K
digits on
was
any
quite
day?
bad. 3.5K. Like, what? And I remember this day as well because I'd spent a load of money and a year of my life building Bitcoin lessons. And this is nearly to the day that I launched Bitcoin lessons.
How heavily were you in Bitcoin at that point?
I mean, I've been all in for about 6 years, or 4 years before that.
Yeah, but I thought you sold a chunk to get out your corporate life.
Yeah, I'd sold a bit, yeah, to go traveling and stuff, and then I put the rest into building this app, and then I was largely just living off. I'd been out for 4 years, so I'd sold some 4 years prior, was largely down to like spare change really of fiat, and then this happened. Actually, no, I did actually. To be fair, actually, I did have a little bit. I remember having a little bit left, and then I was like, holy shit! Like Bitcoin's literally coming down to a price that was nearly where I was 4 or 5 years ago. Because
Mm.
below £1,000 levels. Once I saw 3,000, I'm like, are all the people getting in now in 2020 going to be able to buy in at kind of what I did in 2016? I just went, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So
So
I remember the amount of spare fiat I had left over from this money I'd spent
I
on the
remember
app.
you. Yep.
I lumped in and brought this day and just
Yeah.
I was like, it can't go lower than this.
so
And true
this is
enough,
how you
about
become folks, this is how you become a trillionaire, by going when the market's down. This is what Warren Buffett and Mr. All-In did. But just to kind of like talk about this, so March 12th, was this when the lockdowns happened?
Yeah.
yeah, it was around then.
Roughly.
Was
Yeah.
that what triggered it? Because I remember
Yeah.
all the financial markets went down by about a third around about
Yeah,
this time
the
as
world
well.
thought, yeah, COVID-19 was literally going to destroy the planet.
I
And
think it was March 20th because it wasn't too long
this
before
is March 12th, but maybe the
yeah,
lockdown.
this is March 12th, but March
So
20th
it's a week
was when
after. So
the
that's quite interesting because I
yeah.
would have thought it would have been in line with when the markets dipped, because when it went down by like a third or so, I lumped in a load of spare money into the markets because I went, well, it can't stay down, can it? And soon enough, like it went back up a third, bounced back up a third. I was like, that's nice, nice amount of profit.
Um,
But with this, was there a reason why it just slumped, or is it just lack of interest and that kind of like doldrums of the cycle?
We'd been like going like quite plateaued at 6K for quite a while. And people were constantly talking up, we're about to moon. It's everyone was so bullish, but then it had just been going sideways for freaking forever.
We
And
did
then this
have this.
whole
We had
it was the whole it was COVID, right? It was all rumored to be coming to the West and lockdown was going to happen, and then basically society is over, right? It's going to be like a new normal and all this type of stuff. So people just went, and I have no clue kind of what happened on that day because this isn't a load of retail investors that see some news and happen to sell. It looked like big institutional investors just freaking dumped their Bitcoin on this day and went, Bitcoin is done. And why this is a good day to remember, really, not only is this for anyone that was around in 2020, on March 12th, like if you lived through that and not only held your Bitcoin but added to your stack, congrats. Because we lost a lot of Bitcoiners around here. I remember being on Bitcoin Twitter, it was very quiet. A lot of people lost faith. You can tell people sold their Bitcoin and walked away. But what this prompted was the biggest bull run we've ever seen in Bitcoin. Like for the next pretty much 18 months from this day, we go from 3,800 to 51,000 to the next peak in 2021, November 2021. So with these bad days, and it's just good to reflect on this to go, right now we are at well $52,000. What are we in pounds? £41,000. So more than 10x on here. And most people are not excited at all. We're still going, when's the pump really happening? Yeah, and we're 10x from here,
I think we
4 years on.
in this cycle, I think the equivalent was when we were about 13K. And I think we did have an episode called The Doldrums, which obviously didn't receive a lot of attention because everyone had kind of like lost their way of Bitcoin. And we're kind of like hovering
course.
around there. And it's debating, should I sell one for kids so I can raise some money to go in at 13K? And that's, like the consideration, I think, within this kind of like chat was nothing's changed. The principles are still the same.
Yeah.
It's just that we are on this kind of like roller coaster at the moment when people are still trying to price in what the hell Bitcoin should be.
Yeah. I think last week I shared with our group a message that I got from a friend in terms of I should have listened to you at 14K. And interestingly enough, a colleague who I work with messaged me out of the blue today. And this colleague is a person who I went to the Bitcoin conference with in October 2022. And I'd hoped from going to the conference that the colleague would have invested in Bitcoin. Didn't do so. And I was just like, oh gosh. And I said, I know I may have seemed crazy at the time, But did you listen to me and take the plunge in investing a little bit into Bitcoin? No, sorry, I didn't. So I went back to the date and they would have made a 3x from that day.
Yeah.
£100, 300, £1,000, 3,000, 10,000,
Well,
30,000,
this
and
is it.
so on.
No one buys when it's on the slump.
No.
People jump in when it's hitting all-time highs. You know, I suppose even when I got in, it moved from what was that? What was it again? 3.8 in March up to about 13 in about September. So even when I was moving, it was hitting those highs. You know, but that wasn't. I wasn't really looking at the price too much at that point.
Mm. I always find it funny, how this person apologized to you for not buying. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's the only asset where they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't buy some of your Bitcoin." It's like, dude, like apologize to yourself. Like,
Yeah, don't
I,
apologize to me. I
I'm just
bought.
doing this as almost charity, to bring you in. I'm trying,
Charity.
I'm trying to fast track you into understanding what Bitcoin is, and not only making some gains, but also having money that is separate from state.
Hmm.
So the fact you didn't follow that advice and you're still going to have to kind of go on the journey yourself, taking the long route, because I have literally all the info you need is from me. But it seems like
Yeah.
you want to go on your own journey and make all your mistakes. Okay, but don't say sorry to me. It's you that's lost out on 3 times your money and probably who knows how much more. Because
Yeah.
probably even since that conversation, it's probably going to 3x again before they even think about buying. Because at the moment they'll be going, it's 3x. I'll wait for a pullback. I remember posting the meme into our group. Freaking Dr. Evil 10% was constantly waiting for a pullback. And I just kept posting the
The
skeleton in the
skeleton. The
chair,
skeleton.
being like, still waiting for a pullback. It's like, dude, the pullback ain't happening. Like, we're going to the moon. Like, just freaking swallow your pride and just start stacking some Bitcoin and just
Yeah,
get
but
off zero. Like, I'm
but
waiting
that's
for a
when
pullback, waiting for a pullback.
If this guy is on this pod weekly, again, I say it to everybody, you are already too late. Dr. Evil 10% is over the threshold and he's invested into Bitcoin. Therefore, you
I
are
was going to say,
behind the curve.
and if we're talking real names, what we call Dr. 10%.
Exactly.
He massively benefited from me having to like shame meme him for like 3 years.
Well, I was going to say it was what 2016. Ignoring you, I bought like I don't know what was it, 500, £600 worth of Bitcoin back then. So I bought some Sats, put it on a stick. I bought an F as well. I bought some XRP, you know, because I like to mix my
Diversify.
bag.
Yeah,
And then it just all
diversify.
kind of sat there. And like I said, I couldn't even find where the hell I bought that XRP. That took me forever. Now I can't even get it off the exchange, but at least I sold the XRP and changed it for Bitcoin.
You still can't
Uh,
get it.
no, I haven't tried because I've forgotten where it is. Again. Um, so
One day
yeah.
that exchange is gonna have like 10 million freaking pounds worth of your Bitcoin. You'll be like, is it still worth not trying to find out how to get this
Yeah,
off
but
now?
by the time it's 10 million, like a Bitcoin will be worth trillions anyway. So it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
anyone who doesn't understand what I'm saying there, you need to read more.
Because unfortunately, £10 million will just buy you a loaf of bread, so it still won't be worth going to get it. Yeah.
Exactly. I might give it as a Christmas gift to one of my deckhands. Um,
It's a great tweet in terms of a moment of reflection. March 20th was the day of the lockdowns, and obviously this was March 12th, but March
what you mean with
20th was the
totalitarian lockdowns? I just like to point out
yeah.
there that they weren't there to save you, they did fuck all.
I'm pretty sure they
Absolutely.
stopped the spread and then the vaccine cleared up any other problems. And ever since, we've been fine. Thank you for our authoritarian governments and Big Pharma for saving humanity yet again. We'll be forever in your debt.
It
And
just
please.
pisses me off. It really pisses me off when we go back to lockdowns because I'm like,
I know. We've It's like the PTSD. It's
a
our fucking
trigger.
Vietnam.
I don't want to talk
is.
about it.
Vietnam fucking flashbacks.
Can we just go
Let's
to the
move
next
on.
story?
Yeah, let's move on. Absolutely. Let's go on to the next one.
So I think this is another one which Mr. Allin's going to have to talk us through because we
Yeah.
weren't there. I had some Bitcoin. It kind of sat on a ledger. I'm not entirely sure how it was. I'd lost it for a couple of years and I had to dig around my house when I started buying again to try and work out where said ledger was. But I certainly wasn't paying any attention to the price.
And it would be interesting if this happened now as well, wouldn't it? You know, in terms of so on October the 25th, 2019, Bitcoin ripped up by 42% in a day. A day. So yeah. So
Why did it go up so much in a day?
More,
a day?
more buyers than sellers.
Wasn't any like institutional or the Winklevoss twins or something going on there, or maybe Sailor dipping in?
Yeah, I can't remember. It might have been Sailor, might have been Tesla and Elon.
So I know MicroStrategy and Sailor were more kind of like towards the latter part of 2020.
Yeah, they were. They were part of the bull run.
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah, lockdown.
Yeah, I can't remember back in 2019, but it's as we know, right? It's these big ups come with big downs, and then the big downs come with big ups. So
this was the up before March 2020.
Yeah. You know, there was no mention of anything like a lockdown or anything.
Because the thing is,
so was it sitting at 3K or something before this?
No, it'd come down. So basically, this was all part of the bear market after 2017, and we'd hit 20K. We're just cascading down, and it's so we've gone from the 20K, and we pretty much went down. What was it, to about 6, maybe even to 3? Actually, yeah, it went down to 3 in 2020. So this is like, so we're in kind of like the free fall area, because between 2017 and 2021, watch, yeah, like the top is 20K and the all-time or the current bottom is 1K. Yeah, because that last cycle, the top was 1K. We've now set a new top at 20K. So now suddenly, now we've gone down below 20K. There's 20K and 1K, and there's nothing in between. There's no like previous top in there. So the price is just ricketing around in this space because it's all part of an emerging asset. It's very volatile when it's early, and as it gets more and more mature, the volatility tends to calm down and eventually it stabilizes and it finds its price. So this cycle was super volatile, where we've gone from 1K to 20. And then the next couple of years after that, we went from 20 down to about 3. And then we're just bouncing all over the place. We'd have 20% days. Occasionally, this is the biggest day we've had up, a 42% day up. We had obviously that 39% day down, a couple of months later. And it was a bit of a crazy time. Like you're looking at, I was well and truly all in on Bitcoin at this point, and you're looking at your net worth just freaking bouncing all over the place. And it's just a case of I just need to be like more like Seneveluk, just for my kind of freaking heart condition. This is just nuts, right? And I just went traveling, almost made sure that I didn't have internet signal at any point, and just went, I don't care what the price is doing. I know.
Did you get a job as well?
I didn't. No, I would never stoop that low. I'm not going to get a job.
Just HJs around the back of a train station.
But the whole point of this tweet really is the fact that he's going, because it doesn't really apply, right? Because like I just said, the evolution of Bitcoin is different. Do I think we're ever going to get a 42% day again? I actually don't, just because each time the market share and the market value of Bitcoin goes up, it gets harder and harder to do these bigger percentages, both up and down.
You've got you need more equity into it,
Yeah.
And also you've got probably more in a way believers. Like we saw our bottom on that cycle was 3. On the next one, it appears to be 13.8. So kind of like you've got 4x the bottom there. Even though when I was looking at 13.8, I was just oh my God, is it going to go any lower? But that was the absolute pits of this cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like anything, right? Like back then, if someone like Elon came in and bought $1 billion, you probably would get a 42% day. Whereas
Yeah.
today, if someone came in and bought $1 billion, it would probably go up 4%,
You'd need
maybe not even that.
you'd
So
literally need BlackRock to come in and put it into every pension in the world.
yeah, yeah, and
Imagine.
in a day, and BlackRock aren't going to do that anyway. If even if they do, like they're gonna phase their buys. They're not just going to buy all in one day and just send the price to the moon. Because it's not sensible to do that anyway, right? Any like proper institutional investor knows that if they have a big buy to do, they don't want to affect the price hugely because then they're having
Correct.
a really bad entry. So you stagger your buys to try and move like blend into the general liquidity of the asset. So you don't send it to the moon and end up buying at a big peak. And then once you've stopped buying, the price drops by 30%. And you're like, well, that wasn't good. We're already like a week into our investment and we're 30% down. And we should have been more
Correct.
sensible and spread our buys over a year and blend it in. But
Because not in any way, shape, or form or scale, at this level, at this moment in time, any Bitcoin that I buy, and any SAT that I buy, I am buying at the highest I've ever bought in my entire life in
yeah,
terms of my Bitcoin journey of what now is 7 years.
But it'll probably be the cheapest which you buy from now on.
Yeah,
yeah,
from now on. But
yeah,
up until this point, my highest buys are 34K.
And I bought in the I think it was in the early 40s. On the last time and I bought a chunk as well, which brought my DCA quite high.
yeah.
Mm,
Weirdly,
Um,
I went through exactly the same experience. I bought some Bitcoin again the other day, and after like some consultancy jobs like paid up, and I just kind of cringed a little bit, going, "Oh my, how much is Bit?"
yeah.
I never really
Yeah.
like the amount of money I was putting in. I'm like, how many Bitcoin I'm going to get for this? Like one or two maybe, and it's like zero
No.
point 0.1. I'm like, what? No, no, zero
Yeah.
point 0.1? Like last time I what? I was going to get
No,
at
no,
least
no,
half a
no.
Bitcoin for this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, oh, the price has gone up. And you just
but
go,
this is
wow, this
it.
really is like why it's so important to stag.
But this is it.
Yeah.
We're still trapped in the fiat world. We want the Bitcoin standard, but we are still in the sorry, the fiat world, and we've still got these silly prices floating around with the fake money
Yeah.
when we want to be on the Bitcoin standard. But we've got to bide our time and just keep on. It isn't changing. The asset is not changing.
Mm,
The principles
correct.
are all the same. The principles of what sound money is the same. It certainly hasn't changed no matter what central bankers say. And it's just, it's one asset which you can truly understand because it's not just going to change on you.
Yeah. And the competing asset that is fiat is not changing either. It's just as
Well,
self-imploding.
I was going to say it is changing. They're going to lock you on with a CBDC,
Yeah, it's just a
but
different evolution of the same scam, isn't it?
but you need
Yeah.
that because you need the helicopter money and you need that faster payments.
Yeah. Here's me thinking. I'm pretty sure we've already got a thing called faster payments, but anyway. Uh,
Should
but
we
yeah,
move on?
the whole point of this. Oh, I haven't been sharing the screen. I meant to share the screen on the last one.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the whole point of this tweet is oh, how do I even do it? It's just the fact that it's a nice little bullish tweet essentially, saying that if we have a 42% increase in a day again, even though this tweet is nearly a week old, I think we're back down pretty much to the same price. Yeah, nearly to the freaking dollar. We're still at the same price. We would go from basically 52K right up to was it 74,
Yeah.
75K. So it's a nice little freaking bump in it. But I as much as it's a nice bullish tweet to go, oh, that would be one hell of a god candle. I don't know why it's so big. Like it should be a tiny candle.
Yeah, I read that in the comments. It's
Yeah,
like
down here.
huge, isn't it? It's like, yeah.
But it would look crazy, right? And the fact that Bitcoin has done this in the past, but then
Mm.
obviously you could counter it with, well, my previous tweet was a minus 39% day, so that would look like a hell of a red candle. Like so, and It does look like, I don't know whether it's good or bad. I think for the long term Bitcoin is here, it's probably good. The fact that volatility seems to be have died down, but I think for the attention that Bitcoin gets, it's bad because these big ups and downs, like traders come in and go, "Oh, I could trade that. I would have predicted that collapse. I'd have predicted that pump," and they want to ride these big days of ups and downs and big swings. And but in reality, like we're not here for the traders. And I'm almost glad the fact that Bitcoin trading does seem to have disappeared a little bit from the ecosystem because it's just it's kind of plateaued now of the price. Like we just keep jumping up 2-3% a day, plateau, maybe go down 2 or 3% a different day, go back up.
You had a lot of people, what's it called, putting shorts on Bitcoin, weren't you? And it broke a lot of people.
Yeah, we've had that. We have the classic short
That
squeeze,
wasn't even too long ago. It's maybe half a year to a year.
Yeah, well, that's the short squeezes. That's what does these 42% days. That's potentially actually is the reason why I have 42% day. That's when a load of shorts all get squeezed and they all get invalidated on the same day, and then boof, there's a huge increase because everyone has to buy the shorts that have expired. But yeah, it'd be nice. If we woke up tomorrow and we had a 42% plus day, I'd be happy, but I would also slightly be sad because I go, this isn't sustainable. It's awesome to have had a 42% increase in my net worth in a single day, but I kind of know I'm paying for this probably a year down the line. I'm gonna have a minus 40% day. I quite like the little two. Every day when you wake up and Bitcoin's up like 1 or 2%, I'm like, beautiful. That's beautiful. Slow and steady wins the race. I don't want 40% days because I know what that means. I'm going to wake up one day with a minus 40% day, and I fucking hate those days. Like they are not fun. Even as a dedicated Bitcoiner that knows it all wash out in the end, it still kind of stinks, especially when you've just launched a Bitcoin product to educate people on Bitcoin. You're like, welcome to Bitcoin. It's the new form of money. All right, how's it doing in the market? Oh, we lost 40% in a day. You just go, oh, what a day to launch a fucking educational Bitcoin product. But, oh well. It all worked out in the end.
So do we want to move on to someone who seems to be equally as bullish? I don't know if it's worth a video plays. It's 4 minutes 15. Or we just have it in the links.
We'll play a bit of it.
You've seen the comments, right? It's not just that he closed down, that he would say it's used by drug dealers and used by folks who are doing all sorts of illicit and terrible things. There's very few things that trade today that people talk about like that. Now, there are obviously frauds and things that happen, but maybe not like this.
Like the dollar is like 100 times more.
Well, I know that's your perspective, but I'm just I'm curious how you think about that.
That's true, though. This is how much has been money laundered with Bitcoin. This is how much. This is Bitcoin. This is dollar.
Yes, Joe. But look, here's the Jamie Dimon quote. The only true use case for it is for criminals, drug traffickers, money laundering, and tax avoidance. I know, but we have a guest.
That's his opinion.
We have a guest, Joe. What is your opinion? And what is your opinion that we have something trading on the exchange for the public that has this type of use case, at least as described by the president of one of the largest financial institutions in the country?
It's the leading market share in ransomware, and that's publicly known.
Right.
It's the token of choice for ransomware. Joe, if I can say, the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yen, you have the whole society using it as a medium of exchange. We buy our cups of coffee, as I see here. Right. We get paid in dollars or yen or euro. And you have a whole central bank and support for one currency generally per economic region. That we don't have here. So there's a very real economic difference.
Which is part of the attraction, since it's decentralized, and you can't have a profligate central bank.
It's not that decentralized, Joe.
Well, I know you're saying because of the ETFs, but really it is.
No, it's not that decentralized,
and
because look how finance tends towards centralization since antiquity.
Right.
So what do we have? We have a handful of 3 to 6 core so-called crypto
I understand, but the
exchanges.
asset itself, the way that
That's
the
how the
distributed
accounting ledger.
right? That's how the ledger. And
now, how many times do you have people on this show that say, "I want to invest in something because how the books and records are kept"? I mean, Joe, really? It's just an accounting ledger, a clever.
It's a ledger that everyone has, everyone has, and can't be double counted. It's almost immutable. That's why people think it has inherent value.
So you trust it more than an Oracle database, or you trust it more? I trust it more than a lot of
the Bitcoin bulls say they trust it a lot more than the central bank that enables the fiscal authorities to spend money to the tune of $33 trillion.
That's everybody's investment choice. But
and then I think about how many things can be used in a deleterious way. Of course, but that has nothing to do with the underlying thing that you're using itself. I mean, I can go run a car into a parade and run over 40 people. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have cars. Does it?
No. You should have cars.
I wasn't going to use guns because, God, I don't want to trigger, so to speak, anyone on the set. But
when the use case of a particular thing that you're buying and selling as an investment is just speculative investment.
How many of the 90% of the people that own Bitcoin are using it for ransomware? There must be another use case that makes it so attractive to so many people.
Speculative investing.
Right. Speculative investing. That's what. Okay. Let me ask a separate question, which is just to pivot this, because I think the next sort of order event question is what happens to Ethereum. For those in the crypto world, they all want to know how you're thinking about that. And really, if Ethereum is a security, how does that analysis differ from how you would think about Bitcoin?
What we did in January was cabin to one set of filings. We have other filings. You're absolutely right in front of us, but I'm not going to prejudge it for you or the audience. That's something that a 5-member commission discusses and reviews.
And we're back.
So it's everyone's golden boy, Gary Gensler. Unfortunately for Gary, it's not him who it's really about. It's about Joe Squawk, or is his name actually Joe Kernan? It's on Squawk Box, whatever that is. So it's a nice little clip where they talk about Bitcoin, and Gary Gensler quotes Jamie Dimon again. It's about money launderers, blah, 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 tax evasion, blah, blah, blah. I don't really understand what I'm talking about, blah, blah, blah. And it's everything. When I go back to this Jamie Dimon quote, because people have mentioned it to me, it is taxi driver, slates Uber. That is all this is. It's just noise. And I think Gary Gensler tries to defend fiat versus Bitcoin against this Joe guy, and mentioning the whole society uses fiat and the use case, etc. And it's just an accounting ledger. Why would you invest in it? But there's some really good points in here made by Joe, and I think everyone should watch this, because he talks about, well, it's decentralized. You haven't got the whims of a government or a central bank devaluing the money. And then Gary Gensler just has no response to this, and his one response is speculative investing. So it's just, I think Joe kind of wiped the floor with Gary Gensler, but I don't think Gary Gensler, I think he's too proud to admit it. But also he's so heavily invested because everything in his world relies upon being a fiat Ponzi.
Yeah, I found it very interesting that it's probably the first time I've seen Gary, or actually maybe not the first time, because it gets introduced, right, where
you're right.
It's just yeah, like that he's genuinely bearish, isn't he? He's genuinely, he doesn't want to listen to reason, no matter what the reason is. He will be bearish against Bitcoin, and he's definitely anti-Bitcoin now, because he got put into the chair of the SEC, and he'd worked at MIT and written and even educated people on Bitcoin and admittedly on blockchain, but he was seen as a friend of Bitcoin when he became the chair of the SEC. And it was like, oh, this is where the ETF is going to get approved, and And bizarrely, that has come to pass. Like, Gary Gensler was the chairman of the SEC that did pass the Bitcoin ETF. It had actually happened under his reign. But then he goes on CNBC and is just asked about, why is the general narrative about Bitcoin from Jamie Dimon that it's just for money laundering, terrorist funding and all this. Like, surely it can't be just that if BlackRock and these ETFs have now launched. What is your position? And he just doubles down on it and goes, well, it is those things.
It's
And
an
the only other
interesting
use case it has is essentially gambling. He doesn't want to
speculative, yeah.
even slightly admit the fact that Bitcoin is an alternative to fiat. It is a better
But it's
sounder,
it's an
harder
interesting
money.
one, which you mentioned, that he was basically pro blockchain and, well, maybe towards Bitcoin when he's at MIT. And he comes across as a right fucking moron in all these videos because
Yeah. I
he
don't think he
fails
believes
to.
what he's saying.
Yeah, I think that's possibly it. Maybe I've just missed the point about Gary Gensler, but he just has no conviction in what he's saying. He knows it isn't true,
Yeah,
but
he's a
he's getting
puppet.
paid. He's getting paid so much, and he knows this is his life now.
Yeah.
And he'll be fabulously rich when he steps down his chair. No doubt he'll get some amazing consulting jobs, which pay him like £1 million a year. So he just goes
You'll get
along with it.
speaking gigs for like 300 grand for 20 minutes speaking, and you go, what was that for? It's
Yeah.
just shitting on Bitcoin on national TV every day.
But yeah, I think it's probably my nail on the head there, but I haven't appreciated that he has no conviction about what he's saying, which is why his arguments are so weak.
Yeah. It's just very odd. And the thing is, like, at the end of the day, his office has approved the Bitcoin ETF. So if he did this essentially think it's this illegal asset slash scam, why have you approved an ETF for it? Surely there
I
are
think
some positives to Bitcoin. Do you want to articulate them, Gary? What's the other argument that isn't that which has led you to approve the ETF? And he refuses to say anything positive about Bitcoin. He will only just reiterate that, well, it is the number one currency for ransomware. And you just go, and even on that one, right? I go, why is it the number one currency for ransomware? It's like, because it's the best form of money and easiest to transport
well,
globally
is it
anywhere.
is it actually, or is fiat?
No, for ransomware, I think I actually believe them and say it probably is Bitcoin. It's the whole thing,
Yeah.
like, that locks your computer down, right? And it goes,
I suppose, yeah, because if you're sending it electronically, they just lock the account,
yeah,
wouldn't they?
because if they've locked your computer and you just go, oh, I'll unlock it, just say send £500 to this bank account, you just give that to the police and they get caught, don't they? Whereas if you say, I've locked your computer, sends £500 worth of Bitcoin to this address and I'll unlock it, then if you give the police the Bitcoin address, that doesn't mean anything. So
Yeah,
When I
it
was
is.
watching the video, I just thought he is a man conflicted. It's like any of us watching or having done 132 podcasts, yes, and then going against everything that you've just stood for and all the hours and investment that you've just put into Bitcoin and trying to be on public national TV and say, yeah, I was wrong. But really, I wasn't. And he's just conflicted to try and say that. And the telltale signs are there when
Yeah.
he's being challenged. And so therefore he's just repeating the narrative of, it's bad for society, it's the number one coin or cryptocurrency that's used in these illicit crimes, because that's what I'm being told to say. But I don't believe it. And it's just, it's cringing watching him being there, knowing that he doesn't believe it himself.
Yeah, because it's the fact that it's such like a poor performance as well.
Yeah, it
Because
was so poor.
if I was going to go on there, right, and if I was being paid to shit on Bitcoin, I would still have like the self-awareness to go, I can't be just 100% negative. I'm going to build it up in certain ways, but then I'm going to bring so many negative points at the end. So I'll say like 2 positive things, but then I'll destroy it with 8 negative and leave it. Ultimately, my overall message was negative, right? He's not even smart enough to do that. He only will list these same little 3 or 4 talking points about the negatives of Bitcoin. And unfortunately, like the guys on the panel aren't really, ever going to ask him about, do you think this could separate money from state? They're not there. They're just trying to, and to be fair to the host of this show, usually he's allowed people like Jamie Dimon and Gary Gensler just to shit on Bitcoin. And I think he's almost enjoyed it. I think in this interview, he actually goes, now hold on. I want to get to the bottom of this a little bit, right? You big central bankers and the head of the SEC, you say Bitcoin is basically a criminal asset. Yet now BlackRock have an ETF. Yeah, the most legitimate company in the world have an ETF of Bitcoin. Yet all of you are saying it's illegal. What am I missing? Like both of these things can't be true at the same point.
Only an ETF which you approved. You approved this ETF, and you're then going to also come out with another ETF. Well, not an ETF, sorry, a security with ETH, which is ultimately a scam anyway, because it's centralized. And it's coming because it's going to make everybody a lot of money in the Wall Street world.
Yeah.
It's happening.
But it's good to see them trying to get answers. And then I just hope that, the host of this show just goes, the fact that they're not answering the question and they're being politicians and not explaining what the positives to Bitcoin are, which is why the ETF got approved, is a sign that they're being dishonest. Right? His answers are not, they're not honest answers. He is literally being overly negative to sell a negative narrative about Bitcoin. Because if all the things he was saying was true, there's not a hope in hell his office would have approved 12 ETFs of Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100%. What I thought, and I think we said it last week as well, is that, Jamie Dimon on this same show gave his take and narrative on what he believes Bitcoin is the fact that you're a smart guy. You can't be saying that Bitcoin is X, Y, and Z when really that's not the case. And if you took 5 minutes to actually look into it.
He's giving a soundbite to millions, if not billions, of people who will just repeat it and parrot it, even though it's not backed up by any facts. We've seen this so many times about so many different things. So I think Jamie Dimon's doing it for a slightly different reason, and he knows that he'll get a bunch of, what do they call it? Lenin called them useful idiots who'll just repeat exactly what he said, and they'll be like, Jamie Dimon said, but it's a Ponzi scheme. He said it's for money laundering, and they'll just repeat that to you when you want to talk to them about Bitcoin, or if they try and engage you in a conversation about Bitcoin. So I think someone tried me in the office with some kind of like FUD. It didn't end well for them. I think within 2 minutes they realised they're completely over their head. And it's just, I've spent these hundreds of hours or thousands of hours reading about Bitcoin, reading books about finance, economics, and I'm not someone who you want to talk to about off-the-cuff comments.
Yeah, I'm at that stage. It's one of those, if you're gonna come at me, you better be ready.
Yeah, exactly.
The chamber's loaded and locked and loaded, ready with the ammunition.
I think the problem any Bitcoin detractor has, especially if you're not just trying to meme it, is if you actually go into the data and have a sensible argument and you're on pro-fiat side, you have no leg to stand on, right? So the only legitimate way of arguing it and trying to win that argument is to be dishonest, and it's just to completely dismiss Bitcoin's benefits and just focus completely on some negatives that are either completely false or hugely overblown. And obviously that means you're not being a true, you're not arguing in good faith. in the second when you realize someone's arguing against you, and they're not arguing in good faith, you go, oh, end of debate. You're not trying to debate a point. You're just trying to win your side of an argument that no amount of information that I give you is going to change your mind. So,
but you just lead them down a hole. That's my approach. Like, there's no getting out this hole if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. In Gary Gensler's world, it's like, obviously he's nice and high up crony capitalism, right next to the fucking money printer. So he's going to be fine. He doesn't need Bitcoin to become a billionaire. He's going to become a billionaire the second he steps down from the SEC. But everyone else that is listening to him, how many people is he potentially putting off? But hopefully it's like interviews like this, though, that I would like to think there's the average person that's relatively intelligent that's watching this, who's not a Bitcoiner yet, going, this interview doesn't quite feel,
it doesn't stack
something
up.
off.
And why is it feel like Joe is absolutely smashing Gary Gensler down when Gary Gensler should be the kind of like fountain of all knowledge on this subject?
Yeah, like, why did you approve Bitcoin as an ETF, 12 Bitcoin ETFs? Like, what were the positives that caused you to do this? And so far, the only answer he's ever given on that topic is the rules of the court changed, so therefore our view on the asset is changed. You go, what are these rules? And yeah, he hasn't given anything. And if we want to move on to an even good,
I was going to say this is a story which I've been waiting for.
Feeds in even better. Like, talk about.
I think you've got a couple of videos in this, so I think there's 2. Is it worth playing at the start?
I couldn't.
Yeah, definitely. We'll play that one.
The fiscal challenges, etc., that are there. So very focused on being cost effective. We actually fund ourselves and then work out what dividend is needed to pay. So we kind of it's a great business to be in, central banking. You print money and people believe it, and touch wood. And so it's a slightly different beast.
And we're back.
Yeah. So on the 2, it's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? It's 2 absolute nuggets of information. And it's a good article as well. Really good again. You can trust them to write some very good articles.
But to have the goal, right? They're sat there. This is obviously the Australian government who are talking about this.
New Zealand. Remember, this is the land of Gollum.
Yeah, sorry, New Zealand, yeah. And but to have the goal just to sit there and literally the way they talk about money printing, right? You're supposed to call it number one, you're not allowed to call it money printing, you're not allowed to call it dividends. You're meant to talk about quantitative easing.
That's what I was going to ask.
And borrowing money from and buying government bonds. You're supposed to complicate it to such an extent the plebs can't fucking follow where the money is anymore, and you just go, right, but it ended up stimulating the economy and saving children, right? It did.
And raising employment and helping fight climate change.
Yeah.
And making sure that the world is diverse. So this is a question which I had on it. So one which I want to discuss just because you mentioned it. So on the first video which we've just shown, it says we actually fund ourselves and then work out what dividends need to be paid. What does it mean by dividends? Is that like talking about the bond process?
He's literally talking about this is hilarious, right? He's literally talking about it as if it's a company, right? So you run a company, you get income, and then you decide what dividends to pay the directors. What he's talking about here, as a central banker, is saying we print money. And he said, hopefully people continue to believe this money is real. And he even touches wood in his own fucking head, which is like, it probably is made of wood.
But it's that whole term which I didn't understand, dividends.
Yes, I'm getting to that. Yeah, and then he pays dividends from that. And what he means by that, dividends go to themselves. What money, out of the money we've printed out of thin air, how much are we allowed to give to ourselves that is just pure, unadulterated bonuses? because the money that was printed was for a reason. Right? We had to sign off on a reason to solve whatever crisis we've made up. But we're allowed to take a cut of it. And
That
instead,
can't be true.
it is. That's what he means. He
My
literally
God,
means,
because
how much
like
of the
put
money
that
are
into
we allowed to
context.
take?
So
And he calls it a dividend.
if this was truly a good system, which we discussed 132 times how it isn't, then it would be okay. We've got to print money. We really don't want to, but we're going to have to. So therefore, the bonus wouldn't be given when they printed money. The bonus would be when they don't, because they want to keep the money tight. Whereas it's the fact they printed it and they give themselves, so it's a vested interest.
Yeah.
It just seems a bit ridiculous. It's like you said, you quote some things there. So he says it's a great business to be in central banking. We print money and people believe it, and this kind of goes into what money is. Money is a belief system, but it's a fact that they all laugh after he says that. So they know it's all a pile of shit. And it goes into, kind of what Gary Gensler talked about, how Bitcoin's a Ponzi, blah, blah, blah. But we have just talked about how they can just do what they want. And they basically admitted it's a Ponzi. They've laughed at you, but these people are still believing. But what they're doing. And I think really good point missed by Marty is they aren't saying it in the Mackenzie speak. I love that little phrase. That is the bullshit speak, isn't it? The business bullshit, which we hear quantitative easing, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And this is a quote from one of my all-time movies, The Big Short. Because obviously they've just discovered that the banks are wrapping up bad debt multiple times and essentially confusing that what this debt is and then classing it as AAA, which is the best, most solid form of debt you can get. But in reality, the debt that is inside this asset is dirt. Like this debt is never getting paid back, but they're classifying it as the soundest of debt that is 100% going to get paid back. And they've just heard this in multiple dinners and multiple meetings. And they come back going, why are they confessing to mass financial fraud? I don't get it. And the problem is, it is so widespread. They're not confessing a crime. They're bragging. And this is the point that we've got to yet again, where we have central bankers talking in government going, oh, like, how do you decide how much money the central bank gets when you print a huge amount of money? And they're laughing about it, going, it's a great business to be in.
But
print some money, we get to decide the dividend we get.
But this isn't
Why
me.
are you confessing
I
to
live
fraud?
I live in the United Kingdom. I don't live in New Zealand. This isn't me. It doesn't affect me.
Every single government doing the same thing. If you have
This is
inflation,
it.
you have
But
this.
if you showed this to some status cook or whatever, then that would be their response. It's New Zealand. This isn't the UK. They must be corrupt. And as we say, it's kind of like the dominoes. They're being lined up. They are falling. It may be a bit slower than we'd hope, but it's happening.
The thing is, like, I understand sometimes when people go, but El Salvador or Venezuela, that doesn't relate. Like, this is New Zealand, right? This is still a Western country. They don't have hyperinflation or
I
anything
think
crazy.
they're one of the ones on the top of being the most honest, aren't they? They're always up there because they're so woke.
Yeah, they've definitely been like co-opted, but this is a break of character where obviously the central bankers are getting so brazen over there that they're, and like that meme just said, they're not confessing to mass fraud and stealing from taxpayers. They're bragging about how much money they can steal from people and give to themselves. That this is the world we live in, right? Like, if you're not a Bitcoiner before, like, these are the people you're funding. If you believe in fiat, these are the people you're believing in.
Interestingly, I was talking to a friend about central banks and who owns them, because I've always said, though, they're just part of the government. But he was telling me that quite a lot of the central banks were started by a certain family, which I probably can't say on this, because otherwise we'll get the episode pulled.
And we can. Go on, who is it? Soros.
The Rothschilds.
Rothschilds. Yeah, it's either the Soroses or the Rothschilds. Yeah, exactly. And
Well, the Soros, I don't know if they're quite as
guess who,
powerful.
like, we
Don't
always say,
ever worry
above
about
government.
getting the episode pulled.
I suppose it'd be brilliant, isn't it? We just have missing 132, and we just refer to the missing episode.
Man,
The missing episode.
But yeah, it was.
Let's do a whole episode on the Rothschilds and just freaking smash it.
Yeah, that'd be quite a fun one because I think I could learn a lot. So I think I still read things which I'm just like, oh wow, you know how they funded both sides of World War II, and then the fact that they have central banks in various countries and they funded wars going back to Napoleon times and all sorts. And I was just like, oh my god, this is why I keep on hearing the name and I never realised. And that's all fact. But now apparently they've grown quite poor. They're quite rich still, but they don't do anything more. You know, they've just given up control of the central banks.
Yeah. Well, that's why.
So don't worry about them.
The only thing that you got wrong in your statement there was when you went, the central banks are basically government. There's only a slight error there. It's the central banks are above government.
Yeah. But
you think they're government owned, and it's like, oh, the governments are pulling the strings in central government. It's like, no, it's worse than that.
No.
It's
you see, my thinking was
like, the Rothschilds are above the government, and the central banks are pulling the strings inside government. That is infinitely worse once you realise that.
But I didn't. Yeah, I suppose that's another way to put it. Because I always went the government and central banks are together, and this is recent. So he's saying, well, actually, the central banks are here, like you're saying, and they're created by the Rothschilds, who blatantly still run them.
And I was just like going,
and I was just going, fuck me. And then this was on the back of the video where it was going through. Oh, what is it? BlackRock, and the BlackRock's actually owned by Bank of America, and the Bank of America's is really sketchy on who actually owns that, and it's rumored to be the Rothschilds.
Yeah, Rothschilds and Soros again.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something which I saw a post today about Switzerland. So this is going back to this about the level of inflation. I thought it was really interesting. It kind of fits into here. So it showed the level of employment in Switzerland before and after the gold standard. And before the gold standard, so when the gold standard was a standard, it's fairly flat, you know, really quite low. And it goes quite volatile after the gold standard gets removed. It's up and down as you go through the cycles of the boom and bust through the fiat world. And I'm saying this because it's kind of like we're trusting these people to. We call it the monetary policy, but the monetary policy is never about contracting. It's always about expanding. So you see what government intervention does. It fucks up employment. It fucks up business. You know, like at the moment we're seeing it. Companies can't charge more for products which are being commoditized and really have to go cheaper, but they can't afford to because they've got all these staff who need to do the various jobs, and they can't really afford to pay the staff more, even though their living wage has to be higher. What's going on? And we're really starting to see the squeeze. And it is like this recession's going to be the central bank recession, isn't it? It's not a financial crisis session. It's not the web, the bubble, the .com bubble. It is a central bank crisis, this one. And it's just what comes out the back of it.
Let's do it. Let's commit to doing a Rothschild.
Yeah, I think I'll rely on Mr. All In to kind of lead us on to watching and reading some stuff. But yeah, one which I'd be quite intrigued. Well, that'll be missing 135, the missing episode. We can call it that. And there's a second video on here. So it's not only one about the lack of McKinsey speak. There's actually one about independent currency. So is it worth playing that now?
Oh, I've got a question. Are central banks around the world at all concerned about independent digital currencies versus central bank fiat currencies, and a potential to move away from the US dollar, which runs oil, all the major commodities which are priced in US dollars, and what sort of impact that would have on the international financial system?
The answer is yes, critically concerned, mostly in that what is advertised on the tin is not what is in the tin for the purported alternatives to central bank cash. So there's concepts such as a Bitcoin. It's neither a means of exchange, it's not a store of value, and it's not a unit of account. Yet people try to use it as that. It's got other purposes, but it is not at all a substitute for, not even a complement to.
And we're back.
And he may say, "Are you concerned about independent currencies?" And he says, "Yes, and we're critically concerned." Waffles for quite a bit, and then says concepts such as a Bitcoin, which is not a store of value, nor is it a unit of account. And so it's just discounting. I suppose they use it against volatility, is the way which they see it. But lovely, what do you think?
Fucking scammers.
Mm.
It is the whole thing is just shocking. I think there's I do notice in Australia, New Zealand, which is what I think a lot of people like about that country, is they're very direct and there's no airs or graces. I think is one of what people almost like and but then both hate about places like the UK, which is prim and proper, and people in suits are very well spoken and all that. When you go over to to Australia and to New Zealand, like their version of the suits, they don't really talk the same way. They are much more casual and in their speaking, even if they are the president or prime minister, whatever they have over there. But then I think we're starting to see that now when they're talking about the money, and it's catching them out because they're letting the cat out of the bag here. These are the state secrets that you're not supposed to tell the people. Because if people start putting two and two together and they realize, well, hold on, like my cost of living has gone up 20, 30% this year. How much of that was your dividend? Once people start making those connections, they start to lose faith in the fiat, and him touching wood, going, I hope they keep believing that the money that we print is real. You go, dude, he's touching his head. That's how much confidence he has that the money they print out of thin air is real.
Well,
guess what? It's not real.
It seems like this is a really good case for that decentralized accounting ledger, which Gary Gensler was discounting, because it seems like no one can be trusted to keep control of it.
Yeah, it's nuts. But anyway, oh God, it's weird. We're staying in Fiat land yet again, but we got one of our pod favorites, Elizabeth Warren, on the next story. I don't even know how this story's come about. I literally have no clue what this is about, but
has it been deleted? Oh no, there it is. I thought it'd been deleted then. There's actually some notes on this.
There is, yeah. But let's just read the story first, right? So there's been a certificate of honor to Bitcoin, the creator Satoshi Nakamoto, with a ceremonial flag flying. Americans are forever grateful. And so actually I will just share my screen so people can see it. And yeah, so there is this flag in the United States. They're honoring Satoshi, the 15th anniversary of Bitcoin, signed Elizabeth Warren. And as we know, Elizabeth Warren hates Bitcoin. So there is a community notes. And so, yes, anyone can purchase a flag that has flown over the US Capitol. US Republican Jim Cooper said his website, like those are members of Congress, has a link to the flag program. Therefore, it does not mean Elizabeth Warren has pivoted her views on Bitcoin. So I think what really has happened here, if I really dig into it, is that I think they have flags flying over the United States Capitol all the time. And I think these senators sign whatever fucking flag is going. It's probably for polka dot dwarf people that like unicorns one day and blah, blah, blah. And one's come across her desk and it's like, this one's for Satoshi Nakamoto. She's like, I love that transgender, guy who does the dancing on roller skates. So she's like, sign that one. they've gone, that's the Bitcoin guy. He's like, what? Oh, bring that one back. Bring that one back. I thought he was just on like queer guy wants the straight guy or whatever that show is. Like, I thought it was just Asian inclusion. Like, I didn't know he's a creator of Bitcoin. Bring it back. So I don't think it's like anything really meaningful. It's just like a joke story. But I don't. If anything, it just alludes to the fact that yet again she's a puppet, and she's such a puppet. She doesn't even know what she's fucking signing because she's been on a warpath for Bitcoin the last 3
but I think
years,
it's
and now
probably
she's
just
signing off on, oh, let's honor Satoshi Nakamoto.
it's probably just a stamp, isn't it, for these kind of things? She's not going to sign off stuff like that. She's too busy predicting the market and putting regulations and whatever they call them to protect us.
This story did remind me of something that I'd seen earlier on in the week, which was when the Bitcoin halving comes around, it will be the only event, and obviously please do correct me if I'm wrong, the people from all different faiths, religions, and walks of life will be celebrating. So when it said, it's been flying over the capital of America, it's just like, well, Bitcoin isn't just American. It's more than that. Bitcoin is really universal. It has no boundaries. Everyone will be celebrating the halving. And so whether she's pivoted on her views or not, really doesn't matter. But fantastic that you've flown the flag for it and you've signed off on it. But it doesn't matter.
It just kind of undermines her competency, if anything.
Yeah.
I'm sure she is still a staunch anti-Bitcoiner, and
I'm very sure she is. Very, very sure. But the rest of the world doesn't care.
Yeah, and now we can all save this little flag certificate. Mm-hmm. Like, Elizabeth, why did you sign this then? Why do you honor Satoshi Nakamoto? And she will have to admit, at the very least, I'm incompetent and didn't read that I was signing that thing.
Oh, it's just but it's just money for the government, isn't it? They don't really care. They're like, oh, it's a flag. Don't give a shit. People paid their money, but it goes against what she stands for, which is great.
That's literally her bread and butter. Being paid money to go against what she stands for. That's what being a politician is.
Yeah,
especially in America.
Yeah, and then I guess talking about someone that went against the US government, and don't know, probably debatable whether we won or lost, but we've got Edward Snowden here, who famously obviously revealed that the US government was spying on every global citizen on the planet, and revealed all that the NSA had a project that was spying.
And then had to go into hiding.
Yeah, to run off to Russia and hide. And historically, I know Ed has been into Bitcoin, but I don't think he's ever probably tweeted anything quite this positive. So his tweet is unpopular but true. Bitcoin is the most significant monetary advance.
I'd be surprised if he wasn't in early.
He wasn't. I almost guarantee you.
Oh, wow.
I remember his early tweets. He was very skeptical about Bitcoin. I think if anything, like the more technical you are, sometimes the more you can find holes in a currency and or in a technical evolution. So there's quite a few technical people that I know and that you see on Twitter that argued against exactly why Bitcoin is not technically perfect, but then they were forgetting that it's not just a technology. It's competing against a monetary system, and is it better than the monetary system that exists? And that's suddenly where that magic source comes in. That it is, and the technical imperfections don't actually matter because you don't need that, like these types of functionality.
Hmm.
Bitcoin can be simple and still work. So I think Edward Snowden might be one of these people that saw Bitcoin, studied it, and then went, that's never going to happen, and moved away. And I think he came back in more recent times when he started talking at Bitcoin conferences. But yeah, then he obviously ends his tweet with the famous line from Satoshi himself: "You don't believe me or don't get it. I don't have time to try and convince you. Sorry." So it's pretty bullish, I think, to see someone like Edward Snowden pretty much going, this is the most significant monetary advance since the creation of coinage. You know, he's pretty much going, this is the next evolution of money. You know, before, because he's pretty much taking us back to a time, he's going back to the history of money, and it's the bartering system, and everything's quite convoluted, and there's lots of friction. You've got the classic problem of the coincidence of wants, where just because I have a load of oranges, but you have some chickens, I want some chickens, but you don't want my oranges. What I need to trade my oranges for something that you want, and you need that coincidence of wants to all line up for bartering to work. So we essentially created coins, which just was represented a form of value. And then suddenly now everyone valued a coin the same. So I could now convert my oranges into coins and then buy the chickens and the bread and the wood, you know, that I needed. Edward here is basically going, that was groundbreaking for civilization, and just completely was the catalyst to exploding the productivity of humankind on the planet once we invented coins, and we didn't suddenly have to work in silos and all that kind of stuff and small little bartering teams. We could scale our productivity. Bitcoin is the next evolution above coinage. This is now magic internet money that is also sound, scarce, and far better than the fiat system that we are in, and will lead to such crazy productivity and human advancement. And I think he's spot on. That's exactly why I'm here. This is the bullish case for Bitcoin.
Is there
Right.
anything else I can add to that?
I can't.
Should we move on to the feel good stories, the last one?
The breakdancing fucking Bitcoiner.
When I was reading the agenda, I started at the bottom and started preparing for the podcast this way, actually. Interesting. So, given my background, I was just like, really? Is he? And the dude's got moves still. What I can tell, and this is just natural as well, is that he's undoubtedly holding back because there is still a part of him which fully knows his age and says, I can't go full pelt. Because if I do, I'm going to injure myself, and therefore I'll be out of the game for forever. And even at our age, you might find yourself doing certain movements which you think, I'll just hold back and I won't do certain things the way I used to do them, or I could do them, knowing that if I put my back out, or if I slip, or if I trip, that's gonna fuck me up for the week.
Yeah.
or longer. So let me just call out on this. So I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So Bitcoin breakdancing dad, it's got my vote.
I did just think it was a nonsense viral video. Like, obviously it was fun. I think we've mentioned him on the show before when he came up in a story. But
This guy.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
right.
remember the shirt. It's just that, his daughter had this viral story. So it has a viral response. I'm just like, do you know what? Dr. Evil 10% doesn't give a shit about your fucking viral stories. I like the fact you're into Bitcoin, but I feel this is very fiat.
I mean, at first I did glance at him and think, was that you? But no.
Is it?
Look, you look between the two.
That
The shirts,
you've got the same shirt on tonight, is it?
yeah,
You put some headphones on him.
exactly.
Is this you in 10 years?
Yeah, Dr. Evil 10% has learned some moves and coming to a dance floor near you.
Yeah.
I'll see what happening.
Because it is a weird one, right? It's obviously he doesn't even mention Bitcoin in his video, which is
Not at all.
why is it a Bitcoin video? And it like obviously he's reacting to a viral video where a girl is saying that her dad left her family when she was 5 to go and explore a breakdancing career, and bizarrely it actually worked out. He was 54 when he left, and he ends up being a viral breakdancer. He ends up on American TV and becomes a mini celebrity. And obviously this is his reaction to that, correcting the record, going, yeah, I didn't abandon my family and stuff when she was 5. I gave the mum 2 million as a lump payment, 5 million over the life of the children, looked after them. I didn't leave for breakdancing. I didn't start breakdancing until 6 years after I left the divorce. That just happened to be a thing. And then just then goes off, and he's obviously during this entire video wearing a Bitcoin shirt, and then he goes off and goes, oh, but can this old man at 66 still breakdance? Goes off into a wider shot, huge Bitcoin flag in the background, and proceeds to breakdance, relatively well. I like freaking hell, I couldn't do anything like that, and I'm nowhere near 66. And you just go, okay, who knows? Like, I must admit, there's still a dirty feeling in me that goes, I don't like the fact that he left a wife with 4 children when one of them was 5. That still feels a little bit icky to me. So I'm like, I'm not a fan. But yeah, he explains that it's a marriage, and it's a marriage that broke down, and it is what it is. And but he supported his children financially. He said he was down the road. And then yeah, I like the fact that he
Do we
says
know how
he
he made his
paid.
money before?
Advertising.
Yeah, he ran an advertising company.
Right.
And he says, but then I think the thing that Bitcoiners are tagging on to is that he paid 2 million and 18,000 a month in child support. And he goes, and that's pre-inflation. Remember that is 2005 money. So he actually goes, it's at least 50% more. So if anything, I go, well, that's kind, because you're talking over a 20-year period there. There's probably at least 100 to 200%, really, not a 50.
I was going to say we've had 40% in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, what we know about, I think it's possibly higher.
Yeah. But I think people like the fact that he at least brings up inflation to go, oh, like me saying 5 million of child support sounds a lot. We'll just know that that started in 2005, and there's a $2 million payment made then. So that $2 million payment made in 2005, Jesus, well, what's that worth now? Like in reality, I think if you were to genuinely take the 2 million then and go back in time and have a look at the property or like the stuff you could buy for $2 million, and if you were to relate that now and go, let's take that same basket of goods and pass it through to 2024, 20 years later, I think you'd be looking at $4, $5, $6 million worth of items there. So that 2 million payment is really more like a 6 million payment. But that's what kind of got people, because he obviously talked about inflation. He's wearing a Bitcoin shirt. He's wearing a Bitcoin flag in the background. That's why he makes the agenda. That's that. But he's clearly reading off a script, which is a little bit cringe, but he's got a few moves, and he looks like Dr. Evil 10%. So
apart from it, it's just like I said, fiat viral stories, and just like
you love it.
You love it. He loves it. Hey, your twins separated at birth.
What,
So
by
really, you're a lot older.
separated by 26 years.
Yeah, you're a lot older. Which will explain the conservatism.
Because I think in 14 years, you need to take up breakdancing and get as good as this guy.
Oh, and leave my family.
He started when you, you should have left them about 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah, not if they don't leave you first. I can't take this guy anymore. Yeah, all he does is talk about Bitcoin, talks about inflation. We're off.
Yeah. When you're really sad and lonely, you hit rock bottom, you phone up your breakdancing class and you go down.
Yeah.
And you end up on Britain's Got Talent at 66. And everything's forgiven.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it.
And the broken marriage and the fact your kids hate you, it doesn't matter anymore. Because Simon Cowell golden buzzers you and went, he's my guy.
He's my guy.
Straight to the final.
I need to make up a sob story for
Well, the fact that your wife left you because you're a Bitcoin cultist.
that. Because I kept on telling us to have fun staying poor.
Indeed.
Sweet.
Right. Well, there we have it. That was Pod 132, brought to you by the 4Bs, Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlock, aka the Excellence of Execution, and Mrs. No Show, our ESG consultant, brought to you by the state of El Salvador, aka still Mrs. No Show. Been another one. Peace.